Hi everybody, welcome back to Book Break. My name is Emma. I know things might seem a little bit different right now. I kind of got a little cold, so my voice a little bit deeper. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not actually Emma. Hi, my name is Saajid. I am from the channel Books Are My Social Life. And if you know anything about me, you would know that I am from Trinidad and Tobago, specifically the island of Trinidad, which if you didn't know, is in the Caribbean. And that's what the subject of this video is today. We are going to be having a little bit of a chat about Caribbean literature, and I am going to be recommending you some young adult books and some adult books that you might want to check out. So definitely stick around if you're interested, which you should be. Because why wouldn't you be? So growing up for me here in Trinidad, you would think that I was exposed to a slew of Caribbean literature, of books, of just shelves upon shelves of books set in the Caribbean about the Caribbean experience. You're wrong. And that's not to say that in terms of literature there's nothing out there, because there's actually quite a lot. But what I personally find though is that even though there is a lot of Caribbean literature out there, there's still not enough. We have so much stories to tell. This region is so diverse and so complex and so complicated, and people don't know that because we are represented in the most myopic ways. When people think about the Caribbean, you know what they think? They think Rihanna, they think Bob Marley, they think sitting down on the beach smoking weed, surfing the waves. They think about coconut trees and birds, which, I mean, the noisy birds in the background of this video are not really helping that stereotype. We have so much stories to tell that even we here in the region can't even conceive of. Seeing yourself represented in fiction and seeing yourself represented in media, it gives us this ability to look at our experiences from a bird's eye point of view and understand it in a more complex, nuanced way when it's packaged in the form of a story. I want to live in a Caribbean country where when I walk into any random bookstore, I will see more Caribbean books than I do American books. And unfortunately, that's just not the case today. But that's why this is important. That's why the internet is important. That's why social media, and especially the bookish sphere of social media, BookTube, Bookstagram, all the bookish internet places. That's why we're so important, because we have the platform and we have the ability to promote these books. So I highly encourage everybody to read some of the books that I recommend today and to talk about on your channel, so that we can create a greater demand for more complex, authentic Caribbean stories. Woo, that was a cute speech. Oh, thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Now that the TED Talk is over though, let's talk about some of the books that I have to recommend to you all today. I thought that we'd start off with some young adult selections. Young adult is my specialty, you all, so... The first book I have to recommend is Dreams Beyond the Shore by Tamika Gibson. This is a YA contemporary set here in Trinidad, following a girl called Chelsea and a boy called Kieran, both of whom are from different social classes. They both end up sparking this cute relationship, but there are some obstacles in the way, like the fact that Chelsea's father is running to become the Prime Minister of the country, and Kieran doesn't know that that prime ministerial candidate so happens to be Chelsea's father. But what I liked about this book the most though is that I saw so much of my own experience in it. It is following them as they are finishing up their A-levels, which we call Cape here in the Caribbean. And it was so familiar to me, the environment, the setting, the things they had to do, going for extra lessons. I was just astounded by how surreal the representation in this book was. So for that reason, I highly recommend it. If you want to read a really compelling young adult story set in Trinidad, definitely you all need to pick up The Beast of Cucuyo by Kevin Jared Hossein. Holy word that I don't know if Book Break will allow me to say. It's set in the 1990s in a rural community in Trinidad, and it's following a girl called Arundhati, or Rune for short. One of the girls in her village is murdered, and after her murder, Arundhati decides to take it upon herself to try to solve the mystery. And she ends up in a lot of not great things. The book is interesting because what it deals with in that sense is a lot of the corrupt, underhand things that do go on in Trinidad. But what was amazing about this book was just how compelling and engaging and mysterious it was. That's what it is. It is a mystery novel in many different ways. It will have you mesmerized from beginning to end. I absolutely loved it, and it is one of my favorites. Speaking of one of my favorites, y'all need to pick up The Art of White Roses by Viviana Prado Nunez as well. This is set in Cuba in 1957 and centers around 13-year-old Adela, who is very much confused by what is going on in her society. People on her street are going missing. Her family is very much feeling the consequences of revolution and imperialism, and there's this air of mystery to it that just keeps you very engaged throughout. It's really a book about empathy. It's a book about understanding that gray area of humanity and learning to empathize with people even when they do you wrong. It's fantastic how talented Nunez is, and she wrote this book when she was 16. 16. You know what I was doing when I was 16? Yeah, me neither. I don't even remember being 16. I also would like to recommend Hurricane Child by Casey Calendar. This is a fantastic story. It's been making its way around BookTube, so you've probably heard of it. It's about a girl called Caroline whose mother went missing a year prior to the events of the story, and she's coming to terms with her own sexuality as she discovers that she likes girls. These two aspects of her life intersect when this girl called Kalinda from Barbados transfers to her school in the US Virgin Islands. She befriends Kalinda, ends up having a huge crush on her, and enlists her to help her find her long-lost mother. What I like about this book is not just the themes of family and parenthood, but also the fact that this is a queer middle grade story set in the Caribbean, particularly the US Virgin Islands. And we just need more of that. We need more of that. Like, how often have you heard of that? This might be the first of its kind in many different ways. And for that reason alone, this book is so incredibly important, because you know what I'm thinking about? I'm thinking about those queer Caribbean kids who feel completely and utterly rejected by their society, going into the library, picking this book up, and seeing the validation that they so desperately crave. So the fact that this book exists is just monumental. So now we're getting into the more adult books. We first have The Yard by Aliyah Inayat. This book is so surreal to me in so many different ways, because it is the first book that I've ever encountered that deals with a family who are at the intersection of Indian, Trinidadian, and Muslim. If you didn't know, and you couldn't tell, I am an Indo-Trinidadian Muslim. It's about a huge extended family that lives on this compound called The Yard, and they adopt a boy called Beiruz into the family, which is met with some trepidation from some of the other adults, and it's following Beiruz and a couple of the other members as they grow up. The thing about the compound, The Yard, is that it is a compound where you have an extended family living, like uncles and sisters and brothers and aunts and cousins all living on one compound. And it's incredible to me because that was my experience growing up. That's my experience now, here where I'm sitting. It's just such a fantastic experience to see what I know to be my own family history in many different ways represented in a book for the very first time. It's incredible, and we need more stories like this. Next up, I have to recommend How to Love a Jamaican by Alexa Arthurs. This is a collection of short stories, and I've read a few of them so far, but I am astounded. Alexa Arthurs is such an incredible writer because of how complex these stories are, yet how simple they are. I am amazed by how this writer could make you understand the life story of a main protagonist and understand their context and understand their struggles and understand them as a person within like 20 pages. Each story that I've read so far is so incredibly different. Arthur is giving us a wide variety of experiences of what it means to be Jamaican. I highly recommend the second story in this book though, y'all. It messed me up. I didn't expect to get emotional, but I was crying by the end of it, and it's a story where you wouldn't think that you would get emotional when you're reading it, but then you do. So yeah, I highly recommend this book. I cannot wait to finish the rest of the stories in this collection. I also definitely recommend that you all pick up The Sly Company of People Who Care by Rahul Bhattacharya. I think this is an interesting book because the main protagonist of this book is not from the Caribbean. He's actually from India, and he goes to Guyana as a cricket journalist kind of person. I'm currently reading it, and so far the book doesn't really give you much about him as a character. It more so focuses on his observations of Guyana as an outsider, which is really interesting. He is very much sort of relaying this society that's so different from his own, so heterogeneous, so diverse. Guyana is one of the most diverse countries on the planet, and it's a very complicated country too. It's at the intersection of South American and Caribbean. So far this book is really interesting because we're looking at our main protagonist as he is sort of observing the nuances of how people interact, how they live, how the society operates. And it's almost like a bewilderment, like he's just observing like, wow, this is so different from what I know. It's a pretty decent book so far, and I do look forward to finishing it and seeing what I think of it overall. The final book I have to talk about is Here Comes the Sun by Nicole Dennis Penn. I read this a couple months ago, and wow, it messed me up. This is a very harrowing, dark, sad story. So if you're looking for something uplifting and happy, I'd just go watch JoJo's Siwa or something. This book is about 4 women who are living in Montego Bay, and their community that they live in is about to be gentrified and uprooted because a hotel wants to be constructed where they live. So it's about them dealing with that, but it's not just about that alone. It's about the just corrupt nature of the tourism industry. It's about sex work, it's about sexism, it's about poverty, it's about homophobia, colorism, and it deals with all of those things in a way where it's not just a book trying to address all these kinds of issues, but Nicole Dennis Penn shows how all of these oppressive systems are interconnected and how they combine and intersect to inform one very complex experience. I read this back in March or February, and I'm still thinking about it like in vivid detail. That's how impactful it was on. So yeah, Here Comes the Sun by Nicole Dennis Benn. And yeah, those are all of the books that I have to talk about with y'all today. In the comments down below, I'd love to know if you've read any of these books and you have any thoughts on them. And this is not a definitive list. Do not come in the comments and be like, well, Saajid, you forgot to talk about this book and you forgot to talk about it. If I forgot to talk about any books, talk about them yourself. Leave them in the comments down below. Let's have a chat. On your way down to the comments though, make sure to like this video if you liked it and subscribe to Book Break. Follow them on social media for more bookish, breakish content. And if you'd like to see more of this beautiful face, head on over to youtube.com/books on my social life. That's it for this video. Thank you so much to Book Break for having me on their channel. Thank you so much to all of you for watching this video. I hope you have a lovely, lovely day. And until next time, inshallah, keep reading.